Welcome to a realm where personal growth meets expansive spirituality and where we're not just scratching the surface. We're diving deep, widening our perspectives, and having a darn good time doing it. This is the Enliven Podcast, and I am your host, Jen Hamilton. You'll enjoy an infusion of motivation, empowerment, and inspiration that will resonate in every aspect of your life. Expect captivating stories, heartfelt musings, and my own personal experiences. But that's not all. I'm bringing awe-inspiring individuals to the table, so get ready to meet some remarkable souls whose wisdom and stories will leave you spellbound. No topic is off limits here. Brace yourself for raw authenticity, unfiltered vulnerability, and yes, the occasional splash of explicit language. We're delving into the realms of the esoteric, mystical, and the woo-woo, unafraid to explore the extraordinary. So if you are ready to venture beyond the surface, to explore the depths of your soul, and to awaken the magic of life, if your heart says yes, then hit that play button and let the Enliven Podcast guide you on this remarkable expedition. Hello and welcome to another episode of the Enliven Podcast. I'm your host, Jen, and my very special guest today is Eileen MacDonell. Eileen is an international best-selling author and well-respected coach and trainer on intuition. She works with meant for more entrepreneurial women who want to show up and play bigger in their space. With her certifications through the Napoleon Hill Foundation and Tony Robbins Coaching and her 11 years of professional coaching, she is highly sought after by women who are ready to build the success they know they deserve. Her insights have been featured on networks like NBC, Fox, ABC, and CBS. As a coach, she can help any entrepreneur facing self-doubt and self-sabotage to experience confidence, clarity, abundance, and self-trust through utilizing her powerful Evolve framework, the 6 steps to self-mastery and success. Eileen is an absolute wealth of knowledge, a beautiful soul, and there are so many gold nuggets in this episode. So without further ado, let's dive in. Hello, Eileen, and welcome to the Enliven Podcast. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you so much for inviting me, Jen. This is going to be such a great conversation.
It really is, because you're into some cool shit. I'm into some cool shit. We get to talk about cool shit today. So you're an intuitive breakthrough coach and trainer. Tell us all about what that even means.
Wow. That's okay. So how long do I have?
All the time in the world. What even is time?
Right. That's totally a human construct. So for me, what an intuitive breakthrough coach and trainer means is that I see blind spots that don't typically come up for people. They can't readily see what's in their way. So when I work with people, I intuitively know what they get to lean into in order to break through something that they want in their life. So for instance, if they want to break through self-doubt, self-sabotage, that kind of thing, and it's helping them see what they themselves cannot and creating a safe place for them to be able to explore where they get to go next with this newfound confidence, clarity, trust, all of it.
I love it. I love it. What types of people are coming to you with what kind of issues are they wanting to essentially break through?
So mostly it's women who they have a purpose. There's something that they want to do. They want to play bigger in the world, whether it's have a business, podcast, write a book, follow a dream. That's the main thing, is following that dream and that purpose. And they come to me because they keep running the same pattern. They don't recognize it as a pattern initially. They just know that they keep ending up at the same square one, where it's like, geez, I keep ending up here. I keep not getting the result that I really want. And they may have made some progress, but they haven't made that big jump and leap into where they want to be. So they come see me because in a very short period of time, the learning curve it's not steep at all. It's more like a rolling, very gentle hill that they get to navigate instead of these seemingly huge mountainous, blocks that they have with doubting themselves and sabotaging their own progress.
Yes, I love it because you and I do such similar work in this world. I work with very sort of similar, women who want to really step into their purpose and really discover what that is. And I'm just celebrating every single person out there that's deciding to do this because holy fuck, we need this.
We
Like,
do.
we need people so aligned to just doing what lights them up. And it doesn't have to be a business. It doesn't have to be aligned in their career. Like you said, it could be writing a book. It could just be motherhood. It could be cooking. It could be making music. Like, it doesn't have to be like, I think this is where a lot of people get caught up, is the fact that they think that their purpose means that they have to monetize off it. And that's one of the things that I've realized in my own life, and I've seen for so many people as well. Is that something that you're seeing with people that come to you?
Absolutely. And sometimes people come to see me and they say, I know that there's something big that I want, and I don't know what it is yet.
Mm.
Like nothing quite fits the bill. Maybe you find the same, that not everyone has this clarity. So I've known that I've wanted to write before I knew how to read, but some people still aren't sure. And they could be being that mom, being that conscious parent, holding that space for that family where one day they wake up and they're like, oh my gosh, this is my why. It was right here the whole time. But society sometimes and comparison tells people that they're wrong, that, oh, you can't only want that. That's not big enough. That's not going to make a big enough of a difference. Well, guess what? Every single leader in the world had a parent.
Yes.
So tell me that doesn't make a difference.
Yes. Oh my gosh, you are absolutely speaking my language. It actually takes me back to a memory that I have. It's quite dramatic actually. Um it was last year and it was Easter time, and I had some family come up from interstate that were visiting, and I don't have a lot to do with them. And I got into a fight actually with my male cousin, and he's a little bit older than me. We're actually arguing about COVID, the government, and then veganism. Like, it was like all the topics to like literally be like polarized by. And I remember, like, when things got heated, he stood up, he stood over me, he pointed his finger down at me, and he said, "Who do you think you are, thinking you can change the world?" And I took that and I was like, fucking watch me. Hold my beer.
Yeah.
It gave me so much drive to create change. I was already creating change in the world anyway. And because I was creating change in my own life, I was creating change in other people's lives. And I'd work with like literally hundreds of people around the world, and I had seen them create incredible things in their purpose. People like stepping into doing the things, like stepping out of the spiritual closet and like really owning their gifts as like psychic mediums, people becoming sound healers, people becoming kinesiologists, people like having the relationships they desire, becoming a mother, all of these things. And he didn't know any of that. He had no clue what I did. And it's like, okay, I'm also here as a representative for women to stand up to men continually putting women down, and let me roar even louder if I have to get the goddamn message through that we're here with fire in our belly to live out our purpose. And look, I don't have any contact with that particular person anymore. I left straight after that conversation. I'm like, I'm done here. Like, this is not okay. And it was so interesting because I already knew I was making a difference. And for someone to receive that kind of a blow could really put them down. Whereas I've got a lot of inner strength. I've done a lot of work around that. But like you said, society is there to put people down, to make them feel small, to have them playing in, these societal standards that have been created, which so many people are conditioned by. So
Mhm.
many people are led to believe that that's all there is, or they just go and get the job, or that their hobby can't be monetized into an empire, or that they don't have the resources, or that they're too old, or whatever the bullshit excuse story is. that is right there to be broken through, and that's you and I are so passionate about that.
Absolutely. And I would actually even thinking about your cousin, he is part of the voice.
Mm,
So he said to you, "Who do you think you are to
mm,
make a difference?" But he was standing up himself using the power of his voice. Now, you and I can both agree it wasn't the best use of his voice at all,
at
right?
all.
It was
Yes.
full of judgment and condemnation, right?
Yeah.
But he was using his voice.
Mm.
So isn't it interesting that the people that are speaking up in that way have no idea that they're continuing to make a difference as well?
Yes. Yes, that's exactly right.
They don't even
Exactly
see it.
right. Yeah. And I took like, it was very damaging at the time, like, it took me a lot to
Mhm.
work through that, and then once I got through it, I was, like, so empowered on an even deeper level. It's like, "Oh, okay, alright. I'm doing this for me, and I'm here to prove to you that I've got this," you know?
Right, right.
So, I look forward to the day that I'm on a stage in his city and he can see me on the posters there speaking about all of these things that I'm passionate about. I really look forward to that day. But it's interesting, isn't it? There's so much around us. There's so much conditioning that we have to
Yeah.
break through to get past that, because if someone else had received that messaging from someone, especially a family member and especially a male, there's still conditioning around who holds the power. And like, that side of the family is Italian. It is almost a normal and acceptable thing in European families for that to be the case, that the man
Mhm.
stands up and he has the final word. He didn't like it when I stood back up and I said, "Do you speak to your wife or your daughter like this?" And he just looked at me as if, "How dare you?" And I was like, "I am not backing down. Like, I am not backing down from you speaking. This is not acceptable behavior." But
Yeah.
I've got the strength to do that. Do you know what I mean?
Mhm.
Like, I have literally roared in ayahuasca ceremonies with every single female ancestor behind me, moving through me, breathing life into me, roaring, "We are not okay, and it's time to break this chain." Like, there is nothing that can stop me on this path of having a voice and to be an advocate for women out there as well. And so when we go through this process, that's ultimately where we find our voice. That's where we find, we have to cultivate that inner strength. We don't get it externally. We have to have that from our internal and higher self
Mhm.
that gets us through. And this has been one of my biggest learnings, is that it's all in me. There's nothing outside of me. Everything I have will always be within me. And it's powerful, and this is the work.
You're so right. And it really, for me, where it all started is learning how to trust myself. Because
Mm,
so many times when we're little girls, when we're children, even little boys, we are taught that what we think, what we feel, what we hear, what we say, that we can't trust it. We say, "Oh, this is too hot." No, it's not. "Oh, I'm cold." No, you're not. And we're consistently told that we are not what we believe we are.
mhm.
So, how is it possible for us to grow up and be incredibly powerful and empowered people when we have been taught to distrust everything of what we do?
Yes. Yes, that's so true. And the associations then as well, because, as like within our subconscious mind, the way we've coded right and wrong
Mhm,
actually becomes safe and unsafe. Right and wrong, yes and no, good and bad. So right or no becomes wrong.
mhm,
Wrong gets coded as unsafe. Unsafe within our nervous system means we might die. So naturally, we think to ourselves, okay, well, I can't do the thing that's unsafe because I'm literally here to survive. So I'm going to do the thing that is right, in inverted commas. And then generally, it's our feelings that are made wrong, or our thoughts that had been made wrong. And that's when we go into that avoidance phase to avoid feeling those things, to be made to feel wrong.
right.
And once we know the things, we can't unknow the things, but holy shit, it's an unraveling process, isn't it? I really want to hear about your journey as to how you stepped into this space, Eileen? Like, how did you know that this was your purpose
Hmm.
to support other people? Like, tell us about your deconditioning process.
That is a huge, you're asking amazing questions. So, how it all started is when I started to look at myself and say, okay, I want to be better. How do I get better? So, when I was a child, I was beaten by my mom, and I was neglected in infancy, and I was beaten until I was 16. And I knew that there was this tiny voice, and there was even pillars of people in my life, that would show up every few years telling me that you are not who they say you are. And
Mm.
it was this whisper that I would hear of, you're meant for more. This isn't your life. There's something else for you. And so I believed that. I chose to believe it. We all have that voice. And that, for me, I really believe that's our highest self saying, this is not who you are. What they're doing to you at the moment, that is not the definition of Eileen at all. It's not the definition of you. So I had read books. Now, granted, my awareness came after hundreds of bad decisions. Let me just tell you, it wasn't one day I woke up and I'm like, wow, I'm going to go from this abused child and teenager into this enlightened and awakened being. That's not how it happened. I really had to walk through the shit before I was able to see, oh my gosh, this smells like shit. I really don't want to do this anymore. I don't want to be this anymore. I don't want to have these results anymore. And so I had started to pick up books in bookstores or take them out of the library, and I would read 2 or 3 chapters because I was really looking in the self-help section to see what really resonated with me.
Mm.
And 2 to 3 chapters in, I'd be like, no, that's not me. That's not me at all. No, not me, not me, not me. And then I picked up a book that was called Adult Children of Alcoholics. And that's when I read the book and I was like, it's as if this woman had followed me around my whole life and had written how I felt then and now. And it just felt like a light turned on because there was no longer this, who the hell am I? And not that I wanted to identify as something, but I wanted to understand what the programming was underneath in order for me to change it. So it wasn't replaying the abuse. It wasn't replaying the trauma. It wasn't any of that. It was understanding that because I went through this, this is, these are the patterns, these are the behaviors that I adopted in order for me to cope. So when I got that first understanding, I felt addicted to personal development. And I know that it's funny. I talk about alcoholism, from my mom's perspective and talking about an addiction, but that's really how it felt. It felt like I had become absolutely obsessed with finding out what was going on with me. And I noticed that, and here's the funny thing, is that so many times people start looking at transforming and they are afraid of the pain that they're going to feel looking at, looking under the rocks, where it's funny, they are suffering right now. They're in pain right now. They want something different right now. And reaching to a solution feels harder than staying the same. And you and I both know that once the pain of staying the same is worse than what's out there, only then is when you're going to change. So I had decided that I liked the feeling of growth and personal development because over time, these little nuggets of things that I would get, they would start to reprogram the things that I would tell myself. So suddenly I wasn't calling myself stupid. Suddenly I wasn't saying I can't do that. Suddenly I wasn't chasing the guy that didn't call me back. I wasn't I wasn't needing that external validation. I was giving it to myself. So as I started, and it's really one breakthrough at a time, as I started on that path, it just, it's like the lights were just gradually being turned on in my life. And I wanted more of it all the time. So with that, I mean, it felt like a natural thing because I thought, oh my gosh, if what I did worked for me, given where I had come from, I could absolutely support other people, support other women in identifying that they are who they say they are, not the labels or definitions that other people put on them, that they could trust their intuition, that they already had the answers inside. They didn't have to rely on external forces again. And it was really about them being free to be themselves. And so many women have not fully lived as themselves and really identified exactly what they're capable of. It's something outside that they're like, oh, I really want to see what I'm capable of. The woman that we work with, she does not want the answers given to her. She doesn't want the cheat sheet. She wants to be able to do the work. She doesn't want somebody to just come and hand her a check. She wants to feel the journey from beginning to end. And in order for her to really dive deep into that, she's got to tap into who she is. So with me being able to because I did that, I'm in a really beautiful, humbling position to help other people do the same.
Wow, what a journey you've been on. And like really just honoring you for stepping into that because like you said, like it's so hard, but it's harder knowing that you could be stuck in that way for so long. Like
Yeah.
you have to get so fucking uncomfortable in your own shit
Mhm.
that the only way is to create change, even though like change can feel so hard for people. Change can feel wildly uncomfortable and stepping into the unknown can feel really safe. And when we look at it from a psychological perspective, because change is associated with the unknown, if we've already got a fried nervous system from
Mm.
living in fight or flight because we've had a traumatic experience or we've been to hell and back with something, or we're just exhausted because we're just existing on that rat wheel of life, then of course it's going to feel scary because we're not balanced internally. Like I don't know of anyone that has gone through really really harnessing and discovering their purpose and their passion without having the dark night of the soul and questioning their whole existence and having a complete existential crisis. Not saying that like that is the journey that has to be undertaken in order to get there, but generally there has to be a breaking point. There
Mhm.
has to be a rock bottom, to be able to go, okay, this isn't sustainable anymore. One of my favorite quotes by J.K. Rowling is rock bottom became the stable foundation in which I rebuilt my life.
Mm.
And so for me, like coming back to that constantly is a reminder that it's okay to hit rock bottom because that becomes our foundation. And the way I refer to it, and I actually, in episode 1 of this season, I referred to, some things that had happened this year in my life where it literally felt like a wrecking ball to a mirror, and that the mirror just shattered into a million pieces. And instead of me trying to pick up all of the pieces and put it back together, I picked up the pieces that I wanted to choose to take with me and I made a mosaic out of it. And so my life became a piece of art. And that is the choice within that space of empowerment that we get to have. Unless everything shatters to the ground, unless everything falls away that doesn't serve us, then we're just hauling shit around with us.
Mhm. Mhm. Yeah, and can I share a story with you? It's actually pretty recent. Um, A few weeks ago, somebody told a lie about our family. And it was a really big and very painful lie. And I felt incredibly wobbly. I couldn't do anything for 3 days. I was filled with anger. I was filled with, why is this happening? In my mind, I was dancing with victim. I was like, what on earth? I didn't understand. And honestly, I still don't understand how this came to be. But here's what I know today. I had to sit back and ask myself, how is this happening for me, not to me? And as soon as I asked that question and I sat silent enough, I had realized that I had been asking to get over my fear of humiliation. So fear of humiliation comes with it fear of abandonment, fear of rejection. And how are we ever going to make a difference in the world and show up in our purpose if we are not seen and if we're not using our voice? It can't happen. So therefore, I am so grateful that that happened because and the reason why that fear of humiliation had gotten triggered was because I was afraid of what other people were thinking and saying about me, about my family. Once I was able to identify, oh my gosh, I'm able to get rid of my fear of humiliation. I could work through this shit right now. Holy fuck, this is amazing. Because now, if I were to have stayed in that place, it could have shut me down. It could have said, Eileen, you know what? You can't be seen. You can't be heard. Nobody's going to listen to you anyway. What you have to say doesn't matter. And instead, where it's come full circle is you could say anything you want. You could do anything you want. You could be whoever you want. Because at the end of the day, whoever minds doesn't matter and whoever matters doesn't mind. And if I want to make a huge impact in the world, I have to be willing to say the things that I want to say the hard things, do the hard things, be visible during the hard things. And fuck what the haters have to say. Fuck what the critics have to say. They don't matter. So unless I was willing to take myself on in that and ask for the lesson, it wasn't going to happen. You won't be given something, number one, that you can't handle, and number two, that you won't have a choice of. So it was so beautiful for me to witness myself being incredibly wobbly for 3 days for something that would have taken me out for months or even completely. So if you want to make an impact, the growth, like you said, it's absolutely, it's painful. And sometimes things feel like a rock bottom. Maybe the rock bottom looks different from you for you. It doesn't have to be that humiliating thing. It doesn't have to be a, homeless, hopeless. It doesn't have to be that. It's your rock bottom. It doesn't have to look like everybody else's. I mean, Nelson Mandela's looked a hell of a lot different than most of ours ever will. And you're so right, because in those moments, that's when we meet our other self. Napoleon Hill called it our other self, the self that comes from being spiritually, emotionally beaten and saying, look at the choice that you get to be. Look at who you get to create from this. Yeah.
Wow, that's incredible. Thank you so much for sharing. And I truly believe that those of us that are in this position to help other people, so whether we're coaches, healers, leaders, speakers, authors, which we all have, if we choose to have that within us. But I also feel like there is this sacred karmic contract that exists that says we have to learn the lessons first in order to be able to teach other people.
Mhm.
And that's been my experience, and sometimes it's been really wildly uncomfortable. And like you said, you then get to ask the questions, how is this for me? What is this teaching me? And when we ask ourselves the questions, we're giving ourselves the grace to feel the feelings. And that's actually where the magic is. And there's in our industry, and you can see it in like certain like spirituality things and fucking good vibes only people, is that there's actually so much bypassing in that as well. So
Yeah.
there's a fine line between like getting ourselves out of it in a way that's like, okay, well, I just don't want to feel this, so I'm just going to ask myself the questions and it's going to be all done now. Or going, oh no, I'm actually going to go deep into this. I'm going to feel it to deeply heal it. And this is the thing, when we've got the tools in our tool belt to be able to do that, like you said, 3 days, 3 days to sit in the shit, go through the motions, because at the end of the day, we're still human. We still experience the full range of the human spectrum of emotions. We have to go through those feelings in order to be able to transmute them into something else. And there's so much toxic positivity in our society as well, that basically says brush it back under that rug. And what we know to be true is when we're brushing things under the rug, like humility, like frustration, like the fear of abandonment or rejection, that's going to manifest in our bodies. That's a certain energy. It holds a frequency. We're going to experience that then, ruminating in our body if we don't address it. And this is where we see people experiencing dis-ease or, becoming unwell from it. And so, the tools that we have in our tool belt are the things that are going to go, okay, well, first of all, I'm human. I'm not exempt from people telling lies about me or my family. Yes, humility is part of the human experience. Yes, it is wildly uncomfortable, especially when we've experienced abandonment and rejection in our lives, especially when our association with humility is like that of like, I could die. It comes back to that survival mindset again, and so to be able to recognize that there's actually magic in it, and to not try and like get out of it as quickly as possible, but to go, do you know what? I'm just going to feel it. I'm just going to sit in it for a bit. And I'm just going to ask myself the questions like, what is this actually showing me? How is this for me? And this is what I love about doing the work, is that we are equipped with the questions to check in with ourselves, or speak to a coach or a therapist or someone that can support you in that and hold space for you to move it, because then it doesn't take hold of us anymore. It doesn't put you out for weeks or months or completely floor you forever. Because man, we got work to do. We've got shit to create in this world that's full of light, right? And so thank you so much for sharing that, because it's a beautiful opportunity for people to understand that even though we continue to do the work and we teach the work, we're actually not exempt from this stuff as well.
No. No.
We are still
Yep.
human at the end of the day. And that's one of the stigmas that I've been breaking down, especially working, even interviewing, fellow coaches and healers and teachers on the podcast here. I've been asking them, like, what are you working through at the moment? Because let's just break down the fact that just because we have the tools in our tool belt doesn't mean shit doesn't affect us. Like we still have the darkness, we still have the fears, we still have all of the things like you shared. And I'm so grateful that you're able to share that.
Yeah. And so I love that you brought up, the power of asking better questions. When
Mm,
you're going through something, what is this here to teach me? How am I to grow from this? What do I need to know? What haven't I been looking at? What can I dig into? What do I get to break through to? And during that time where it was that initial trigger, and unless you really understand what it was like to be a child and to be blamed for something, even when you've done nothing wrong, you still carry that flush and the rush of shame and humiliation when you're accused, even though you've done nothing. So it was really about unpacking and disconnecting from all of those things. But that rush of emotion was real. and it lasted quite a while. So that, to me, that's the dark. Looking at the dark of the feelings of, this feels really gross. I don't like this. I feel angry. I feel sad. I feel like I want to hide. I feel like I want to quit. I feel like, and then looking at our dark through the lens of our light.
Mm.
And this is something that we always have a choice to do. We can, and like you said, everybody, not everybody, there's still some people that believe, you know what, just, you don't have to feel it, just rush through it and whatever. And there is a time and a place to rush through emotions. And I could talk about that in a second. But when you're dealing with this kind of stuff, and it's allowing yourself to look at, okay, why am I feeling humiliated? What is it about the humiliation that's really triggering me right now? And asking those questions through the lens of curiosity and through the lens of the powerful, incredible woman you are right now, not looking at it through the triggered little girl, not looking at it through the lens of, there is something that I should be ashamed of.
Mm.
And it's the disconnection of who I used to be and who I choose to be today, and allowing yourself to ask the questions that serve the higher self.
Mm.
Ask the questions that bring you through it, still allow you to feel it because you're still processing it. You're asking the question, why did this humiliation trigger me like that? And then you can journal about it. Oh, that's what's underneath it. Oh, I totally forgot that had happened. Isn't that interesting? And you can look at it through curiosity instead of self-judgment, self-beat up, and allowing yourself to stay, like you said, at that lower frequency for much longer than necessary.
Yeah. And one of the biggest things for me is cultivating safety. So cultivating safety before I even ask myself the questions, because if I'm already deep in the feels, I'm already feeling unsafe to be feeling that. There's still that little girl inside of me that's like, this is not safe, abort mission, abort mission. And so, to reparent that inner child, I have to create that safe space. So for me, it might be on my bed with my favorite blanket and a pillow and a cup of tea.
Mm-hmm.
Or it might be some beautiful music that I know just sort of gets me into feeling like I'm in a safe space, or making a ceremonial cacao, putting on some essential oils or some incense, and just being alone, where I can't be interrupted, to just sit and feel my feelings. And like you said, journal about them, or, just even speaking out loud. You can speak to your guides at any time. If some people aren't writers, they can just talk. I find myself talking to myself in my car all the time, and it's not myself, it's anyone else who's listening. So for the biggest thing for me that I've learned is creating that safe environment to begin with, and especially
Mm-hmm.
when my clients are coming through to do any sort of inner child work, I always say to them, have an anchor, like a particular pillow or a blanket or something that that you can grab hold to. It can be a teddy. That can be like your little therapy teddy, that you can grab hold of, that can be like, this is reminding me that I am safe to feel these feelings. So really just cultivating safety from within, because as we mentioned before, nothing's going to be external. No one's going to turn up at your door and be like, hey, I'm here to keep you safe while you feel your feelings, especially if the reason that you're unsafe is a family member or someone that was close to you. Like at the end of the day, we only have ourselves. And so creating that safe space in order to feel the feelings. And, for me, like I really want to give the listeners some tangibles to take away from this. So I'll share some of mine, and then I'll throw to you, Eileen. But one of the things for me is just acknowledging the feelings and checking in with my body as to where I feel that. And so sometimes it's even just so hard to admit that we're having this feeling. Let's talk about humility. I feel humiliated. Absolutely, hands down, one of the most uncomfortable things to feel, because we have a physiological response in our body
Mm-hmm.
that literally sends signals that says that we're unsafe, that it is not okay to feel this feeling. We have the same response as the way anxiety can present in our body. Our heart starts racing, we get all clammy, our hands get sweaty, our heart rate goes up. Like we're literally ready to fight or flight. So we're going into that space. And then from there, because we go into this space, our digestive system is like, evacuate everything, get it out.
Yeah.
We need to be on guard here. There is no time for food, and we lose our appetite. And then we struggle to even just function in our day, and then we don't sleep properly because we're on high alert. So then we're just chugging on the coffee, and then the coffee's doing the things to our adrenals. And if we don't deal with it, we end up in such a shit show. And so before we get to the shit show, we want to get to sound check of the shit show and then realize, hang on a second, this shit show's not for me. So allowing ourselves to just literally feel the feeling and put a name to it. What I'm feeling right now is humiliation. Where do I feel that in my body? Wow, it feels really tight in my chest at the moment. I'm feeling uncomfortable, like I want to roll my shoulders around as if I want to flick this energy off. I'm safe to feel this even though it's uncomfortable. Wow, okay, now I can feel it in my breath. My heart's still racing, but I'm safe. I'm safe to feel this. Where else do I feel it? Oh, it feels like a knot in my stomach and I'm feeling a bit lightheaded. I've got some water here. I'm going to have some water. Okay, so this is humiliation. Okay, this is uncomfortable, but I'm safe. No one's been hurt. The world hasn't imploded. Oh, okay. My palms are feeling a bit sweaty. My heart's racing, but I'm okay. This is humility. Okay, I'm feeling really I'm feeling so disappointed that this particular thing happened to me. And it makes me really angry that this has happened because it's out of my control. I'm feeling really powerless to this situation right now. I'm feeling really defensive. I'm feeling really angry. I'm feeling so frustrated that I can't just lash back out again at this person that said this thing. Okay, this is humiliation. In the past, humiliation has been worse to me. I've just wanted to really run from it because this feeling in my chest is uncomfortable. This feeling in my stomach is uncomfortable. In fact, I think I have to go to the bathroom or be sick or something because this is so uncomfortable. But my body's actually okay. Do you know what? I'm okay. And if I take some deep breaths, okay, I'm starting to feel better about this now. My heart rate's slowing down. I can just walk alongside this now. Humility doesn't make me a bad person. Humility doesn't mean I'm broken. Feeling humiliated doesn't mean that I have to just completely exist with anger. It's just a feeling. It's just a feeling. It could be like happiness. I get to experience happiness and my body has a physiological response to that as well that might be more enjoyable, but it's still just a feeling and no one gets hurt by that either. So this feeling is uncomfortable, but I'm not going to die from it. I'm just going to feel this feeling. Okay. Okay. So that's what humility feels like. Okay. Okay. I can breathe a bit better. It's going to take some deep breaths. And you know what? It's passing now. Okay. All right. My body's feeling okay. All right. Okay. So that was it. That was humility. Whew. Okay. I've got this. What do I get to learn from this? And then we ask the questions. So that was just a bit of a snapshot of learning how to sit with the feeling, being with the feeling, being present with what's coming up in the body at the time, being present with the feelings that are moving through, and first of all, creating safety for it, but just allowing it all to be there and just giving it a voice, giving a voice to what is happening in the body. Let's not make the body wrong or reject the parts that are already feeling rejected. Because the minute that we make any of that wrong, we're rejecting ourselves again, not only from our feelings, but we're rejecting ourselves for having a fear of the feelings. And that's the shit show.
Oh, so good. So good. I love that connection.
Yeah, yeah. What does it look like for you? So that's my general process and how I would teach someone to just be I've had a full fucking breakdown and that's what's got me through that. And
Yeah.
sometimes it's not that fast. Sometimes that could be, look, feeling a feeling and moving through it can take literally 4 minutes. People spend their whole life in like the depths of active addiction because they don't want to feel a feeling.
Mhm.
And it could take a lot longer as well. Like there's so many layers to addiction and trauma and all of the things. And I'm not saying it's just going to pass for everyone in 4 minutes, but people literally run from their pain and their suffering and try to numb it out because they just don't want to have a look at what's underneath that. So, Eileen, I'd really love to hear from you when you're in it. What does it
Mhm.
look like for you?
So initially, yes, it's all of the physiological response. It's that shock of anger, that physiological response, or a shock of sadness, and then that response of the tears or whatever. And in this particular case, how I get to work through it, because sometimes I don't connect with my body right away. I try to disconnect from my body. And I do that. I don't know if it's because I was physically abused. I don't know if there's a connection there. I can only, you know, guess and, you know, whatever that word is that I'm looking for.
Assume.
Yes, thank you. I can only assume that that's the right answer. So for me, something that I ask myself is, what is the story that I'm making up about myself right now? What story is it triggering that I've had a relationship with in the past? And then I look for evidence of, okay, so for instance, with this, okay, the story I'm making up about this is that they don't like me, that they never liked me, and it was a family member. They don't like me. They've never liked me. There's nothing that I could have done or said. I'm not good enough. And so I was looking at all of these stories. And if I look at the narrative, it's a narrative that I had been running for decades because that was the narrative that was given to me by my family of origin. So when I'm like, okay, so just a second, I am making up that I'm not enough. Isn't that interesting? I'm making up that I'm not enough. Like, is that really true? Is it true that I'm not enough? And then I look for evidence of where it is that I'm not enough. I'm like, you know what? I'm a good mom. I'm a good wife. I'm a good human being. I'm a good coach. I'm calm. I'm generous. I'm beautiful. I'm loving. And I'm able to look for evidence that refutes the story of someone who isn't liked, isn't respected, is lied about, is whatever it is. And while I'm going through that process, that's when I also have the invitation to release more of the story because I've gotten to a new level. So every time, and I firmly believe this, that I have a choice to believe that this is happening for me and that my fear of being humiliated is going to come up again eventually to a different degree, to a different level, and I will be able to deal with it at a new level until I get to a point where humiliation to me is just like, I'm just cleaning it like dust off my shoulders, that it doesn't even matter. So, being in that moment, looking for evidence, it allows me to get back to my reasoning mind and say, wait a second, all of this other stuff isn't true. And then I get a choice. Do I want to sit in what's not true? And that's a ridiculous decision. But do I want to sit in what's not true? Do I still need some time to sit in what's not true? Or am I prepared to shift into what I know absolutely to be true? Something else that somebody gave me that was so powerful that I want to share. When you are hurt by someone that you respect, that's in your family, that whatever, or you're given advice by someone, I invite you to ask the question, do I want their results?
Hmm.
That, when I started to apply that into my life, it allowed me to move through so many of the wounds that I had that I was holding on to for convenience. So I was holding on to my wound to help me keep playing small. As soon as I asked myself, do I want their result? I was able to disconnect from the narrative and the limits that they had put on me or that got triggered in me and say, no, I don't want their results. So I get to go over here and listen to these people whose results I actually want and desire.
Mm.
So that is such a beautiful invitation to choose who to surround yourself with, choose who you want to be influenced by, choose who you want to be in relationship with.
I love that so much. And it's so true, isn't it? Because it's all about what we consume, who we're choosing to be around, the information that's all of the pieces of information that we're absorbing literally every second of every day is being stored in our subconscious,
Mhm.
helping us to support those belief systems, to support those stories. We have this thing at the back of our brains called the reticular activating system, the RAS, and I call it the little librarian, and it's literally her responsibility to show you the proof to sustain your story. So if you're sitting there going, I'm a shit human, she comes out with all of these memories and says, hey, this is all of the proof that says you're a shit human. But when you go, hang on a second, I'm going to consciously choose to notice where I am an amazing human, where I am a powerful coach, where I am an incredible partner, mother, human, I am kind, then we can start finding proof in order to sustain that belief.
Mhm.
And then we can start to deconstruct these old ways of being. And every single time we consciously choose to do that, we're creating a new reality for ourselves. We're creating a whole new experience of life. Because, yes, we get to honor the parts of ourselves that felt as though she was shit, or that she was wrong, or that she deserved to be humiliated. Let's honor the part of ourselves that had this old story and say, well, hang on a second. If that's my story, I love myself through that. I wholeheartedly love myself through that experience. And I'm consciously choosing to rewrite my story now. What does that look like? And
Mhm.
this, like, that is the magic. That is the magic. And this is, for anyone out there listening, this is what people like Eileen and I are here for, to go through this for ourselves in order to support other people through that and empower them to become their whole selves, to unite those parts that are dark and light, bringing like this, that's the shadow work, going into the darkness and bringing it forward and realizing that it actually can't hurt us, that it's actually such a powerful part of, transmuting all of those shadows into the light. And so, Eileen, I'd love to hear from you. Is there anything, like, obviously, there's been so much magic and wisdom in our conversation today. If the listeners are out there going, oh my gosh, wow, this, I've needed to hear all of this. And I'm at a point in my life where, yes, I want change. Yes, I want to find my passion. Yes, I'll go through the hard part. I'll get to the dark night of the soul and I'll hit rock bottom, but I just don't know where to start. I don't know what to
Mhm.
do. And I'm so scared. What would you say to them?
Become aware of your thoughts.
Mm.
And that would be the absolute first thing that I would say to you. And even before that, it's be grateful, choose gratitude that you are willing to do the work, and celebrate yourself that you are willing to start. No matter where you are on your journey, whether you're at the beginning, middle, or nearing the end of your self-evolution, there is something in here still for you to explore. So first of all, I want to acknowledge you for choosing yourself. And one of my coaches says, how do you vote for yourself?
Mm.
So congratulations on voting for you by wanting more. And then that second piece would be being aware of your thoughts, because your thoughts, everything that you think about, that is what you bring about. Everything. So if you think you're unlucky, you're right. If you think you're lucky, you're right. If you think that things won't happen, you're right. If you absolutely know that they will, you're right. So your brain is there, your mind is there serving you with whatever you desire. And using it wisely is the best and most sure path. It's really the only path, but let's just say it's the best and most sure path to getting to where you want to go. So if you have a thought and it doesn't serve that woman that you really want to be, if it doesn't serve that vision and that purpose that you have for your life, that dream that you have for your life, say cancel, 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 and then choose a new thought. So for instance, if you say things like, I don't know if I could do this, cancel, cancel, cancel. And then even if you don't believe that you can do it in the moment, you could say something like, I'm looking forward to the day that I know that I can. And if you're in the space where you're like, wait a second, I just want to dive in and I can believe it even just a little bit, tell yourself, I know that I can do this. I am safe. I've had an affirmation of I am safe to live in joy and wealth. I've had that affirmation for a very long time, and it served me so well because I never felt safe wherever I was. But I had to start with, I am looking forward to the day that I feel safe to living in joy and wealth. So, and just giving myself that space to be able to grow. So pay attention to your thoughts. Pay attention to how you are focused on either the positive feelings or the negative feelings in your life, the positive influences and the negative influences. Are you somebody that looks to complain, or are you somebody that looks to lift other people up? Are you looking for the victim, or are you looking for where you're winning? Are you celebrating other people, or are you criticizing them? There's, without an up, there can't be a down. Without a left, there can't be a right. So pay attention to what you are thinking. That's the number one thing, because that is what is really influencing your subconscious mind. So what you think about, you bring about.
I love that. That is incredible. Thank you. We will link to everything in the show notes of how people can contact you with your Instagram, your website. What is the best way that people can work with you?
Oh, absolutely. You can reach out to me on my website. You can also go to, you can send me an email, Eileen at eileenmacdonell.com. And I also would love to offer a free course to your listeners. It's called Change Your Thoughts, Change Your World. And it brings you through the 4 easy, simple, very actionable steps for you to start changing your thoughts so you can change your world and start living a life that you desire.
That is incredible. Thank you so much for that. And we will link to that in the show notes. Eileen, before we wrap up, I have one more question for you.
Mm-hmm.
What is the meaning of life?
Joy.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
I love that.
Joy.
I love how quickly that came to you as well. Beautiful, beautiful.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for joining me for such an incredible conversation. It's been an absolute honor to have you part of the Enlighten podcast.
Thank you so much, Jen. This was great. I'm so grateful. Thanks.
Thank you so much for joining me for this episode. I hope you love the Enlightened podcast, and the biggest compliment you can give me is subscribing to this podcast, sharing it, and leaving a rating and review. Feel free to follow me on Instagram. My handle is @JenHamiltonOfficial, and the podcast handle is Enlightened_podcast. You can also find the video version on YouTube on my channel. Just search Enlightened and don't forget to hit subscribe. Have a beautiful day and enjoy living the enlightened journey of life.